Breaking tonight, President-elect Donald Trump offering up a few more major cabinet announcements this holiday weekend. But it's one of the big positions that he hasn't filled yet that has folks talking. And his own team reportedly at odds. Welcome to the Kelly File, everyone. I'm Sandra Smith, in for Megyn Kelly tonight. Today, Mr. Trump defied his critics, adding a third female to his team, tapping Fox national security analyst K.T. McFarland for Deputy National Security Advisor, and former Trump campaign general counsel and current transition team member Donald Megyn to the post of White House counsel. But it's former Massachusetts governor and fierce Trump critic Mitt Romney, who's been floated as a possible Secretary of State, that is reportedly dividing the Trump team right down the middle. Fox digital politics editor Chris Stirewalt, former House Intel chairman Pete Hoekstra, and Fox contributor Rich Lowry join us in just moments. But first, Chief National Correspondent Ed Henry is here with more on the Romney reaction. What are your sources telling you at this hour?
Well, new information tonight is that Donald Trump and Mitt Romney traded phone calls over the Thanksgiving holiday. We did not know that they had actually continued this conversation. And what that tells me is them speaking by phone. Mitt Romney is still a live option for Secretary of State, despite fierce conservative opposition about this right now. That's happening not just out in the mainstream, in the grassroots, but among his own team. And yet Kellyanne Conway out there talking about loyalty tests on all of this. And it also tells us, I have a source senior in the transition telling me that, as you suggested, if Mitt Romney wants this job, he's going to have to issue some sort of a public apology, whether it's a letter.
Work, really? I mean, if he had to issue
it could undermine him.
It could. And then if he was actually put into the role, what would it be like for Mitt Romney working in that administration, knowing that people like Kellyanne Conway were fiercely against him?
And that he was on bended knee just to get the job. And that's why it's opening a lane here for Rudy Giuliani, who also has met, obviously, with the president-elect about this job. And nobody was more loyal when you were talking about loyalty than Rudy Giuliani at his side. But there is this fierce battle going on behind the scenes about whether or not, you go loyalty or you go with Romney, who, let's not forget, he said it wasn't just policy. He called Donald Trump a phony, a fraud, and attacked his supporters. So this might open a third lane.
And who could that be?
Look, someone like retired General David Petraeus, he was asked about some of this, and he told the BBC, look, I've served other commanders-in-chief. I could do it again. That seemed to say, wait a second, this could be almost a dream team on the national security side. You've got General
Charles
Petraeus.
Krauthammer, by the way, earlier this evening said he thinks that would be a wonderful pick for the Trump administration.
Because you've got Petraeus maybe as Secretary of State, maybe General James Mattis as Defense Secretary. Donald Trump has alluded to that. And Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, who you've mentioned, National Security Advisor. What's wrong with that picture? Two things. One, Donald Trump spent a lot of the campaign saying, I don't have an itchy finger on the trigger in terms of warmongering. Now you've got three generals in senior positions. And secondly, David Petraeus, one of his problems was obviously mishandling classified information. Think about how much time Donald Trump talked about, quote unquote, crooked Hillary and mishandling classified information, and she should be in jail. Now he's backed off of that, number one. And number two, he made the point repeatedly that Petraeus did much less than Clinton and paid a bigger price. It would get awkward to bring him back.
That the team is somewhat divided as of
fiercely divided tonight about whether you go the Giuliani route or the Romney
route. But Mitt Romney's still in.
Mitt Romney very much in the mix and has been talking over this holiday to Donald Trump in private.
Ed Henry, thank you very much for joining us. All right, joining me live now is Chris Stirewalt, Fox News digital politics editor, Pete Hoekstra, a former House Intelligence Committee chair and Trump campaign national security advisor, and Rich Lowry, a National Review editor and Fox News contributor. Chris Stirewalt, I'll start with you first, sir. How does this all end for President-elect Trump and his team?
Well, it could be quite, I was going to say it could be quite favorable for Donald Trump in this way. If you create this dynamic, is it A or B, A or B, A or B? When it's C, D, E, F, G, H, I, or J that shows up, people go, oh, you solved the problem. And it's also important for Trump that he can send a signal to his base. If he accepts Romney, he gets credit for it. But if he turns Romney down, he gets a lot of credit for his base for not buckling.
Fair enough. Mr. Hoekstra, could this open the door for a third option? Newt Gingrich the other day said he can think of 20 names that could fulfill this role.
I think what Donald Trump is doing it's fascinating. Everybody seems to be focused on the palace intrigue. They've been focused on that through this whole process with Donald Trump because he's doing things differently. I think Ed Henry's absolutely right. By the time Donald Trump gets done, he's going to have a dream team to implement his agenda to combat ISIS and radical Islam, to fix our immigration issues, to fix education. He's picking strong people who are totally in alignment with him, who are also, and he's going to do the same thing here with the Secretary of State.
But for the time being, Mr. Hoekstra, and I'll go to you on this, Rich, as Ed Henry is reporting, and as we saw with tweets from Kellyanne Conway today, the team is divided when it comes to choosing the Secretary of State. There are some inside his own camp that are fiercely opposed to Mitt Romney.
Yeah, well, I really think the reporting that there's just down to two choices is really overdone. I doubt Mitt Romney is going to publicly apologize. That would be abasing himself. And I kind of doubt he'll ultimately get the pick in the end. And Rudy, the problem is he's really tried to publicly jam Donald Trump on this, saying he would accept nothing else except for Secretary of State. Yeah. And I think there are a lot of other options out there. One of my favorites, so I think would be a great compromise choice and very much still under consideration, is John Bolton, who, unlike Romney or Rudy, actually has substantial foreign policy experience and would avoid this war over the loyalist and the interlopers.
Okay, but Chris, let's talk about, you're throwing out another option there, Rich, but let's talk about General Petraeus. He has thrown his name into the ring and said that if he is asked to fulfill a role for Donald Trump's administration, he would accept. Is he a viable option?
So there's Petraeus, there's former Marine General Kelly, there is Dana Rohrabacher, congressman from California,
Senator
wants America
Bob
to know. Bob Corker. So the list goes on. The idea that that you're limiting it down. Would you, for example, have figured that Nikki Haley was going to be the choice for? No, you don't pick that. So I think what Trump is doing here is smart in the sense that you weigh your options, you use surprise to your advantage, and there is one other problem, and Ed alluded to it, and I think it's something to remember. If he stacks his administration, the Secretary of State's not the most important job. It's the most prestigious cabinet post, Thomas Jefferson, but it doesn't really matter the way that it used to because presidents execute their own foreign policy in a substantial part now. Secretary of State is a very nice honor for someone, and they do have control over a lot of practical things with embassies and all of that jazz. But this isn't the most important appointment
But still, Mr. Hoekstra, Donald Trump has said he is going to surround himself with the best people, and where he's lacking experience, he's going to surround himself with the smartest people to help him do this job. Mr. Hoekstra, Petraeus has thrown his name into the ring. Chris Stirewalt named another few. If Mitt Romney were to actually be named into this role, knowing that there are those inside of Donald Trump's own team that don't want him there, what would it be like for Mitt Romney to play out his job, to do his job?
Oh, I think it would just be. I think it would be just fine for Mitt. Clearly, Donald Trump is and has made it very clear. Only he knows what's going on. He is in charge, and he's going to run this organization. I think the bigger question is Mitt Romney willing to accept that kind of leadership to implement Donald Trump's agenda, which is exactly what Donald Trump will require from all the people that he puts into his cabinet. He's willing to take differences of opinion, but if people don't perform or they cross him one way or another, you can expect to hear the term, "You're fired."
And so what do you make of the diversity that we're seeing now, Rich? I mean, another woman named to his cabinet, this after he was facing headlines that his team was lacking diversity. Well, they were surely quick to jump to that conclusion. And now we've got 3 women on the Trump team.
Right. And the other headlines we were seeing, a week or two ago was just the transition was in total disarray and the Trump administration was on the verge of collapse at the outset. Instead, we've seen picks moving very quickly, very strong, and I think he deserves credit, whether he picks Romney or not for Secretary of State. Right. He has reached out to all factions of the party.
That sounds like a compliment from you, Rich.
It is. Look, when I get a White House offer, everything is forgiven.
Trump's tweeting National Review. You know that the thaw is on. Trump is tweeting National Review instead of calling Rich a dummy.
Maybe at the end of the day, what you're saying is, and you actually started with this, maybe it's just going to bring everybody together.
Well, you know what? It's the day after Thanksgiving. Everybody's still kind of food coma. So we'll just accept these happy thoughts. There will be trouble ahead. There will be bumps in the road ahead. It will be hard again. But this is not the make or breaker. This is just some people who are airing some bad feelings that they have, some loyalty questions. they'll get through this and they'll be on to the real
stuff.
stuff.
But Mr. Hoekstra, there's still a lot of positions that have not been fulfilled. He still has a lot of decisions to be made. And right now, with this division that we are seeing within the transition team, it's giving the left and those who have not supported Trump, it has given them an opportunity to say, hey, look, they can't get their act together.
Yeah. No, but I mean, he does have his act together, and division is okay. And I think, again, it shows that Donald Trump is a big man. He can accept division within his team, get conflicting advice, and then he will make a decision, and he will expect the team to implement his direction. It's what all good leaders do.
And so you would say that this is par for the course as far as this point in a transition team for a president-elect?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was a very, very tough campaign, and to put people back together is going to be difficult, but he's doing it.
Rich, last word to you.
Yeah, look, I mean, this is part of any transition. There are going to be these sort of divisions, and I'm sure there are a lot of Obama people who weren't particularly thrilled about picking Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State in 2008, but politics always makes strange bedfellows.
Oh, politics, so much fun on this Thanksgiving Friday. I thank all three of you for being here live with us tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
Bye.
Bye. As President-elect Trump seeks to fill out his cabinet, some are questioning the net worth of his potential nominees. But does having money mean they can't help the working class Americans that helped elect the billionaire businessman? Anthony Scaramucci is a member of Mr. Trump's transition team that we just talked so much about, and he will be here to respond next. During the presidential election, then candidate Donald Trump vowed to make America great again for all Americans. But tonight he's taking some heat for appearing to stack his cabinet with the super wealthy. Politico with the headline, Trump's team of gazillionaires. Politico surmises that if Trump appoints folks like his education secretary, pick Betsy DeVos, as well as Rudy Giuliani, Mitt Romney, and others, his cabinet and administration could be worth as much as $35 billion. The New York Times deputy Washington editor, Jonathan Weissman, sarcastically tweeting, between some of those names and others, this is going to be quite the working class administration. In moments, we'll be joined by Anthony Scaramucci, a member of Donald Trump's transition team. We'll ask him about the criticism. But we begin with Peter Ducey reporting tonight from Palm Beach, Florida, outside Mar-a-Lago.
Sandra, because working class voters propelled Donald Trump to the presidency, some on the left are now crying foul that the billionaire is surrounding himself with other billionaires. The two people who are reportedly the president-elect's favorites for the top two spots at the Commerce Department, Wilbur Ross and Todd Ricketts, both billionaires. Another name swirling around as a possible cabinet member is Harold Hamm, an oil billionaire. And the education secretary he's already nominated, Betsy DeVos, comes from a family worth at least $5 billion. Politico did the math and speculates that if you add up the net worth of Trump's rumored cabinet secretaries, the sum could reach $35 billion. But the current administration behaved basically the same way when filling key positions, even nicknaming one proposal the Buffett rule, after the second richest person in the country, Warren Buffett. A quick look at President Obama's own cabinet room over the last 8 years shows massive wealth. There's Commerce Secretary Penny Pritzker, a businesswoman from Chicago worth $2.4 billion. Her dad helped found Hyatt Hotels, and she grew up to lead a lucrative real estate business. Then Secretary of State John Kerry, worth $103 million, and also married to Heinz food processing heiress Teresa Heinz. And the Veterans Affairs Secretary Bob McDonald made $15.9 million in 2013 alone. President Obama did bring aboard a Secretary of State who claimed to have been dead broke just a few years earlier, but as it turns out, that Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, was worth $15 million while in office, and a whole lot more now. Sandra.
All right, Peter, thank you. Joining us now, Anthony Scaramucci is a member of President-elect Donald Trump's transition team and served on Mr. Trump's Economic Advisory Council. Anthony, thanks for being here tonight.
It's great to be here. Happy post-Thanksgiving.
You too, sir. Can you clear some of this up? Because there is a lot of talk about him surrounding himself with billionaires as if that's a bad thing.
Well, I think the only thing that Peter left out is with the Trump bump, all of those people are a lot richer, including Warren Buffett, who's up $11 billion in the last 2 weeks.
And you're referencing the stock market rally we've seen since
so I think the good news is the denigration of wealthy people and the divisiveness of that sort of class warfare is sort of coming to an end. And I think that's a very good thing for the American people. The other thing that article left out is that every one of these people, Sandra, is an unbelievable philanthropist, gives tons of money away. She's an incredible philanthropist. In fact, she's dedicated her whole life to education, understanding the issues of education, and frankly, how to help poor people in indigent areas and in the inner cities get their children the quality education they need so that they can have an aspirational working class conversion into the middle class and hopefully into the affluent.
By the way, as Peter...
So I think this is a fantastic thing for the American people, that he's focused on meritocracy and talent as opposed to this nonsense of picking people based on their net worths not being enough.
As Peter pointed out at the top of his report, he said working class voters propelled Trump to victory in this election. Now Democrats are crying foul. Well, isn't that a key point? This isn't Trump supporters that are crying foul, saying we don't like what we're seeing. This is the left that is criticizing him for this.
The left has got a series of talking points about railing on rich people. They think that class division is a really powerful antidote for them, that they can get their people out to the polls. I think people are in general very, very tired of that. You know what people want? They want wage growth. They want jobs. They want quality education for their children. They want a right-sizing and an evening of the playing field as it relates to trade so that we can have super free trade, but let it be fair for the American people and for the American worker. And so if the super distinguished people that have done amazing things with their lives, that have led to the great American success story that you just heard about, then so be it. Let's let those people help the rest of us get to where we want to go.
So let's clear up a couple other things as well, though, because when you dig into when you're looking at Mnuchin, right? Mnuchin and Bannon.
You would love the Mnuchin. I'm going to call him Munchkin.
Okay,
tomorrow.
well, you can tease him all you want. It's my fault. Sorry about that. And Bannon, as we know, his Goldman Sachs background. I mean, you're talking about Wall Street backgrounds. How important is that, considering Donald Trump said, you know, he made his election on the system is rigged? Well, a lot of Main Street and those that are making the average $55,000 a year in this country, they think Wall Street's rigged. How is that for them to see him put people from Wall Street on his team?
I'm also a product of the Goldman Sachs, and I've worked on Wall Street for 28 years. And I've had this conversation with the president-elect, and I'll continue to say the same thing. There might be some bad actors on Wall Street. There's no question about that. But there are bad actors in many industries. But guys like Steve Bannon and Steve Mnuchin, in fact, they've been terrific people. They're high ethical, high integrity. I've worked very closely with both of those people. And I have a tremendous amount of confidence in them that they're going to do the right thing for the American people.
But while you're here, and we've got this news tonight on this divided transition team that you're seeing reports all over, very divided. But Mitt Romney, apparently, we saw the tweets from Kellyanne Conway today. How is it going? Can you let us know before you go?
Well, first of all, as it relates to Kellyanne, I love her because she's been so instrumental in the success of the campaign. Everyone on the team respects her, and so she's entitled to her opinion, and she's sharing it with people over Twitter, so God bless. As it relates to the transition in general, I said this to Bloomberg, I said it in a press conference, the transition has been nothing but orderly. The information is being provided that the president-elect and the vice president-elect...
Is he still being considered?
Who?
Mitt Romney.
Well, I have to take Vice President Pence at his word when he says he's being seriously considered for Secretary of State. I do think that there are other candidates in the field. And here's the thing, that the message for the American people is that there's a very orderly, very disciplined process. And what the president-elect is doing, he's doing a wide-ranging search so that when the people are finally declared, Sandra, he can say to the American people, listen, I really went through a rigorous recruiting process, and I picked the best person, or to quote Mr. Trump, A++ player is going to join the administration.
So good to have you.
I'm very proud to be a part of it with him, and it's been a fantastic 2 weeks for us. And I think the American people are going to be very excited about their new administration.
Anthony Scaramucci, good of you to be here.
Good to be here. Thanks, Sandra.
Good to have you. All right, we'll hear with more as David Wohl. He is an attorney and Trump supporter. And Christopher Hahn is a radio talk show host and Fox News contributor. David, I'll go to you first. What do you make of what you just heard from Anthony?
Well, he's right on. I mean, Mr. Trump was elected by the American people with the full knowledge that he's a hardworking, very successful billionaire. So the idea that people are going to be now offended that his cabinet members, or at least a few of them, are also very successful millionaires and billionaires
Chris,
is
I want to get you in
garbage.
on that. And sorry, that was me saying thanks to Anthony for coming on. Chris, but I want to bring you in here because to David's point that he's making out of the gate here, you're talking about the American people who elected a billionaire. So why does the left think that they're going to have a problem with him surrounding himself with other, not all, but some other billionaires?
You know, I think it's much ado about nothing. The president-elect could surround himself with whoever he wants to surround himself with. The question is whether or not those people are ready to perform for him, and that's how he'll be judged after January 20th. I, for one, you know, look, I don't agree with a lot of these people. I didn't vote for Donald Trump, but now he's the president-elect of the United States. I'm going to give him latitude to make these decisions. But when or if they stumble, he's going to be held accountable. Personnel is policy. I'm more concerned about their experience than their net worth.
But, I mean,
And
David,
guess
that is the criticism. I mean, when you look at this Politico article, Trump's team of gazillionaires stacking his administration with masters of the universe.
Right.
I mean, and by the way, a lot of the names that they're talking about here haven't even been named to his administration officially.
Right. And, well, look, this is the whole trend. If you haven't noticed, Mr. Trump wasn't a politician before he was elected. So this is the whole thing going on right now, is that people that don't have experience in government, that aren't politicians, but are very successful, are being placed in high positions in the cabinet. But don't kid yourself. There are going to be a lot of people of ordinary means as well that are going to serve as the conduits to ordinary Americans to sort of get this whole ball rolling in the Make America Great Again movement. And that's going to be happening very soon as well.
Chris.
Sandra, I don't think anybody expected Donald Trump to be filling his cabinet with people who were, you know, lifetime government workers. That said, you do need some experience to make sure the trains run on time. When George W. Bush got elected president in 2000, he turned to some experienced Republicans who had served with his father's administration to kind of show the country that he was serious about governing. I fully expect before this is done, Donald Trump will probably pick some people like that as well. And I think this is fun for us to talk about right now, but I want to see the full picture before I cast judgment on what he's doing.
And that may well be why
David.
Mitt Romney's, that may well be why he's trending toward Mitt Romney as Secretary of State, because he does have that governmental history. He does have that persuasive history of getting things done in government. Well, and I mean, that may override all the other candidates in the end. And frankly, that's the way it's looking.
All right. And by the way, just pointing out some of the hypocrisy here is that the position that sort of put up the red flag, Wilbur Ross, the billionaire, being considered for Commerce Secretary. Remember who filled that position for Obama? Penny Pritzker, a billionaire herself, coming from a very wealthy family.
Both Bushes as well, Sandra, had billionaire confidants and assistants and employees. So this is nothing new.
All right. Thanks to both of you.
Thank you.
All right. During any time of presidential transition, there are vulnerability concerns for the country. And now there are some new questions surrounding President-elect Trump's intelligence briefings. Iraq and Afghanistan combat veteran Pete Hegseth and Crystal Ball are here next on that. Here with more, Pete Hegseth is a Iraq and Afghanistan war veteran, a Fox News contributor. Crystal Ball is a senior fellow at New Leaders Council. Pete Hegseth, I'll start with you first on the idea of these classified intelligence briefings and Donald Trump only having gone to 2 of them, criticism that he's not attending these as he should and getting this information. What is in those briefings, first of all?
Well, sensitive information, classified information about the threats facing our nation. But many others reporting on that have said it's not unprecedented. He gets to set the pace of them. Other presidents have waited longer for that particular intelligence. And you know what he's most interested in, and he said this in his defense, building a team that can support him. He doesn't have the background in national security that others have had. I mean, Barack Obama knew nothing. Let's be clear about that. He built his team. Donald Trump is building him and building his, and starting with General Flynn and KT McFarland today, a defense secretary, a secretary of state. He's going to build people that will advise him based on his approach to the world, which is neither the neoconservatives and the interventionists nor those under Barack Obama who have blamed America first and put us in this weak position. We're in a weak transition position because Barack Obama has put us there. His job is to put America back in charge in a leadership role. He's building the team to do that, and he'll get briefings in due time. So those that say he's not taking it seriously, they're just looking at ways to smack at Donald Trump, and I think that's what you're getting in the media right now.
Crystal, historically, this is a vulnerable time, the transition period, because as Pete points out, while he does need to get to those intelligence briefings, and he has 2 already, Mike Pence has been getting all of them, his vice president, still this is historically a vulnerable time. Why the criticism coming on behalf of Donald Trump?
Well, look, as Pete was just saying, Donald Trump comes in quite inexperienced in foreign policy, and I think it's legitimate for folks to wonder, is this someone who's going to buckle down and be able to focus and absorb the information that he's going to need to be able to make those decisions that only a president can make? So look, I don't want to overstate the case here, but I do think it's troubling that you don't see him really diving into these intelligence briefings the way that President Obama frankly did, who also came in with not a whole lot of foreign policy experience, but he dove into the briefings. He also asked for specific deep dives so that he could get up to speed. So it is a bit troubling that you just don't see that doubling down. And the other thing that I would say here is, when you are president, you have to be able to do a lot of things at once. So the idea that he can't build his team out and also be receiving these briefings, I think, doesn't hold up to scrutiny. He's going to have to do a whole lot more than that at one time once he actually is president of the United States.
All right, so let's talk about these threats, though, Pete, because we have to take these very seriously and at a time of vulnerability. And you're saying, hey, well, you can't go to every one of these meetings because he's got to put together the right team to combat ISIS to begin with when he gets into office in January. How serious are these threats that that James Rosen just reported on?
Of course they're serious, but if you know what you believe, you know what you believe. And it's sort of foolish to think that Barack Obama, because he had a couple of deep dives, understood intel better. He ignored the fact that we're fighting radical Islamists. He called ISIS the JV team. He set a red line that he wouldn't enforce. He put us in a vulnerable position through his naive foreign policy that blamed America first and led from behind. Donald Trump knows America's a force for good, wants to rebuild our military, understands that our allies like Israel need to be supported, that Iran shouldn't have a nuclear bomb. All the things the Obama administration has abandoned, those core principles put him in a strategic advantage over Barack Obama. So he's listening to advisors like General Flynn, like KT McFarland. You think he's not getting advice from them when he meets with them? In addition to his intel briefings, if you have a core, if you have a belief, that matters more than sitting in a few briefings. And the intelligence community does not trust Barack Obama. They do not trust Barack Obama.
You also have to know something about the world. I mean, this is the man who didn't know what the nuclear triad was. And he seemed unaware that Putin had been in Crimea.
But hold on, Crystal. If he doesn't know that radical Islam is radical Islam, then what does he know about the world?
At some point, you're going to have to. At some point, you're going to have to stop blaming Obama, and we're going to have to start assessing President-elect Trump. The fact of the matter is, he didn't demonstrate a lot of foreign policy knowledge on the trail in the debates or otherwise. So yes, you can have a theory about the world, but it's helpful if the president
Crystal,
is also
some would say that you're
informed by
blaming
some
Donald
information
Trump
here.
for not doing the right thing, and Donald Trump's team says he's trying to put the right team together so that he can get all this done when he gets into office. So maybe this is just an inappropriate time for a blame game to begin with.
You don't think Donald Trump can walk and chew gum at the same time? He's doing both.
Crystal, Pete, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to both of you.
Thank you.
Developing tonight for the second year in a row, a major disruption for holiday shoppers in Chicago as protesters from the Black Lives Matter movement flood Michigan Avenue, urging a Black Friday boycott. They're also demanding action on police misconduct toward minorities. For more on that, we go to Fox's Mike Tobin in the Windy City.
Sandra, in the cold weather, the demonstrations never amounted to the thousands of people and major shutdowns of the retail establishments. We did see them block the entrances to the Cole Haan store, the Nike store, the Apple store, Crate and Barrel. There was some pushing and shoving with police officers, a couple demonstrators detained. A lot of faces we have seen before, people who show up at these demonstrations, very eager to engage the protests, disrupt the process of others, not that eager to engage the political process.
We have to stand up and fight back, you know.
Did you vote?
Of course not. And the reason why
not?
Because there's no reason to vote here in this country. This country is based on genocide, slavery, and war.
The demonstration is recognition for the police-involved shooting of Laquan McDonald here in Chicago. That video was released just a little over a year ago. The stated goal of the organizers is to push the establishment of a civilian police accountability council. However, with all of the causes piling on, Chicago Tribune columnist John Cass says what we're seeing here is the galvanizing of the left.
You got to step out of the box a little bit and look at what's really going on. And what's really going on is the left is organizing these young people to get ready for the next election and moving the party to the left.
The difference with the demonstrations last year is they came right on the heels of the release of that Laquan McDonald video, and the emotion was very raw. Since Wednesday, there have been 2 police-involved fatalities in the city of Chicago, but they're just not generating the same level of interest. Sandra, back to you.
All right, Mike Tobin. Thank you. Joining me now, Kevin Jackson, conservative radio host and Fox News contributor, and Atima Omara, political strategist and Virginia Democratic National Committee member. Thanks to both of you for being here tonight. Kevin, I'll start with you first. What do you make of these protests that you're seeing right down the Magnificent Mile there in Chicago again?
Well, the real question might be, do black jobs matter? Because they're certainly interrupting a lot of the cash flow that retailers will have these days. But back as far as the protest goes, it's a legitimate protest. Laquan McDonald was shot. Rahm Emanuel covered it up because of electioneering and wanting to not be embroiled in a Ferguson-like situation. And so it's a legitimate thing. But I think in terms of where the passion lies, it should go against Rahm Emanuel and not the police.
Well, and to be fair, some of the protests, some of the chants that they are chanting are to get rid of Rahm Emanuel. But Atima, I want to bring you in here because I want to hear from you. What are they asking for? What do these protesters want?
Well, from what I've read and what the protesters want is, what a lot of these protests around the country are asking for is for better relationships between police and the community.
And how do they think they're going to accomplish that, Atima, by trying to stop commerce in the city of Chicago?
Well, I mean, honestly, no protest is ever effective when you're having it, let's say, on Tuesday in the middle of a day. Of course, we're talking about it now because it's on Black Friday when a lot of shoppers are out there. So they're doing their job. Most successful protests have been at times when it's high traffic and a lot of people are out and about. So obviously they got the attention that they were looking for. But they're looking for, a civilian accountability council that has an independent council that can work with police on building better relations, specifically with the community. I mean, yes, it could come certainly top down from the mayor. I wouldn't dispute
Kevin,
that. But the police commissioner sets that agenda, obviously.
But Kevin, you look at these protests and you just wonder: is there a better way than by trying to do what they see as the right thing by doing something like shutting down retailers, blocking customers from walking through their doors?
Well, of course there's a better way, and the idea that they really want to have a better relationship with police is unfortunately betrayed by the idea that they're going around killing police. So if you really want to have a dialogue with police, you got to be honest about what's going on.
I want to get to the question, though, that and I want to get to this with both of you. Are we going to see changes coming with the Donald Trump DOJ, especially talking about Senator Jeff Sessions as Attorney General? Will we see changes, Kevin, as to how they deal with groups like Black Lives Matter?
Well, first of all, I don't think the onus is on Donald Trump. We've been dealing with this issue now for decades, and it's generally at the hands of the Democrats like Rahm Emanuel and the Baltimore mayor and many others in these large cities that are run by typically mayors that are Democrats and particularly black mayors. But is Donald Trump going to address it? I think he will. I think that he's going to take a tougher stance with respect to law and order. I think that the actual conversation between police and the black community does need to be had, but not lopsided the way the left tends to want to do it.
Atima, I want to get your thoughts on that. What do you expect from President-elect Trump's DOJ?
Oh, well, President-elect, what I would expect, of course, would be what has been upheld, which is the DOJ is the nation's cop. They go into police departments that are doing civil rights violations. That's what was done with Baltimore. That was done, obviously, with Ferguson. Now, given Sessions' history, having actually praised Trump as recently as August of 2016 on calling for the death of 5 men called the Central Park Five, most people know that, way after the years after they were exonerated. He believes in stop and frisk, which is something that is not even legally upheld in the United States, or certainly at least.
Sure, it has been.
Kevin, I'll let you. I don't have much time left. Kevin, I'll get your response to that.
Oh, now?
Yep.
Sorry, I thought she was still continuing.
Last word to you.
Look, a lot of the policies that she's talking about are legal, and they do prevent crime.
Wasn't held up by a court in New York.
Well, that may be true, but it's not illegal. So, but the point is this: these policies do work. They do stop crime in the neighborhoods where they should be stopping crime.
All right, I will stop you there. It's good both of you come on. Conversation will continue. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, some folks on the left still aren't done complaining about the election. Can you believe that? All right, we'll explain next. A new effort tonight to challenge the results of the November 8th election. A failed Green Party candidate, Jill Stein, is now asking supporters for some $7 million for recounts in 3 states. Teslin Figaro is a former Bernie Sanders campaign staffer and political analyst. Nomiki Konst is host of The Filter on Sirius XM Progress. Somebody help me out here. Teslin, what is she trying to do?
Well, you know, it looks like the Green Party is all about the green, literally and figuratively. You know, I was all for people who wanted to offer Dr. Stein a protest vote after Sanders fell off, but to ask millions of hardworking Americans to give her money to a campaign that, like my grandmother used to say, she knows good and hell well is not going anywhere. It's just flat out wrong. You know, she's raised more money than she's actually raised to actually campaign, which laid off hundreds of people who actually did believe in her effort and those who supported her. So I think the fact to, you know, keep pushing this taken from hardworking Americans is just bottom line a Ponzi scheme and a hot mess, just to be quite honest with you. And I'm very disappointed in seeing her actions.
Well, Nomiki, I mean, Teslin said it. I mean, there's no guarantee what happens to your money if you donate it for this cause.
Yes, and Dr. Stein did say that. Listen, I have been critical of Dr. Stein since day one. I was a surrogate for the Bernie Sanders campaign. As soon as the DNC ended, we said Dr. Stein should pull out because she might be a spoiler. And guess what? Now she's making the case that she might have been the spoiler. And the truth is she might have. The 3 states where she's contesting the election would have actually determined the election for Secretary of Clinton. She could have won. And we're talking about like 1.2% in Michigan, 0.7% in Wisconsin. That is enough to determine the outcome of the election. The problem is that we do need an audit. We need to revolutionize the way our electoral process works.
But she's pushing for a recount based on evidence of nothing, Teslin. I mean, there's no evidence that anything went wrong. Nomiki,
Yeah,
what are you suggesting? Is there something that we don't know?
What was that?
Is there something we don't know? Is there a scam? Is there something wrong with the election?
There have been, you know, there's been some scientists, and I'm not siding with Dr. Stein, but there have been multiple sources that have come out and said that the sources, the electoral process is flawed.
Okay, I'm talking about evidence. Teslin.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
There's no evidence that anything went wrong. Teslin.
Yeah, we don't need an audit. Yeah, we don't need an audit. Dr. Stein needs to have a seat. You know, I understand she wants to continue to organize the Green Party and just flat out tell people, donate your money so I continue to organize, like what Bernie Sanders did with our revolution, saying they want to continue to have people to organize. If you want to give your money to an organize, fine, but to say that you're going to get a recount when you've only had 1% of the vote, it's not going to make up 99% of the vote.
I hear you, Teslin. I completely agree with you. We need to start from the ground up, but we have a problem in the primary system. We have a problem with the electoral system nationally. When the states determine the primaries, when they oversee the primary outcomes, that's a problem. When every state, when Pennsylvania relies on paper ballots, and if there was a close race, they had a recount, major problem.
This sounds like a conversation for a whole nother day. We're talking about Jill Stein demanding a recount. Thank you to both of you.
Thanks, Sandra.
We'll be right back. Well, thanks for joining us tonight on your holiday weekend. Let us know what you thought about tonight's show. Tweet me at Sandra Smith Fox and join me weekdays on Outnumbered at noon Eastern Time. That's it for us from New York. I'm Sandra Smith, and this is The Kelly File.